is the 77 WABC minicast.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to do something a little different. I am fired up, just so that you know that I am fired up. But today, we're going to do something different. Today, I want to make the show about me. Not because my story is more important than everyone else's, but because I want people to understand where my fight comes from, where my drive comes from, and why I have always believed that success is not given to you. It's built. People see success and they see the finished product. They see the business. They see the accomplishments, the people you know, the places you've been. But they don't see the journey. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the failures. They don't see the fear or the sleepless nights. My journey started when I was 17 years old. There was a reason and a recession at the time for why I started at 17. But the truth is, I knew nothing about recessions. I knew nothing about markets, about economics, or about politics. I was just a kid with one goal. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to change my world. And by default, change the world for my family. When I think back to those early years, 1973, 74, 75, I remember being a high school dropout with a burning desire to become someone. I tried working in my family business, but it didn't work out. Like most people, they love their family, but they can't work with their family. I looked around and saw what they had. Businesses, employees, money, independence. I wanted that for myself. But I also learned the failures that they had. I also learned that their businesses wouldn't last very long because of their lifestyles. They would spend more than what they would earn. They would fall behind and not pay their bills on time. I saw all of that. So not only did I see them going up, I also saw them coming down. So I set out on my own, making sure that I didn't make those same mistakes. I got a job at a baby furniture store called Schneider's, selling cribs and furniture and accessories. But very quickly I realized something. I didn't like taking orders. I didn't like the idea of living with a limited salary. But I must say, the Jewish family that owned Schneider's paved the way for me. They taught me right from wrong. They taught me that if you know your product, you can be the best at, and you're the best at it, you will succeed. No one will beat you if you know more than the next guy about the product that you are selling. And this Jewish family took me in at a very young age. They nurtured me. They used to pick me up in the morning and drop me off at night, because one thing I learned from them is you know what time you're opening the store, but you never know what time you're going to close it. You never know what time you're going to go home, because you don't go home until the job is done. And this guy, Roy Waxman, everyone would leave except for me, Fernando. I used to stay with him, sometimes till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, while he sprayed painted cribs in order to deliver them the next day, because the color the customer wanted, he did not have. So he had to create it. He had to make it beautiful The customer never knew that his crib was brown because when it was delivered white with red finials. I remember taking strollers apart, repairing strollers that came in damaged, and fixing them. And learning all of that taught me one thing. You can sell anything you want to sell if you know the product. I knew I wanted more. So I told Roy one day, Roy, I love it here. I've learned a lot, but I want more. I want to be on my own. I want to start my own business. I know that I will never own this business. And Roy said to me, listen, I will triple your salary if you don't leave. And I said, it's not about the money anymore. It's about success. It's about me having what your children will have. It's about me being independent. And he looked at me, and I was 15, 16 years old, and he couldn't believe what was coming out of my mouth. But anyway, I moved on. So I went to flooring school. I worked odd jobs. I saved every dollar. I worked as a helper, laying carpet, linoleum, tiles, and later became a mechanic at 2 different carpet stores. The last carpet store I worked for, I left because the owner screamed at me in front of a lot of people because I stepped on a white carpet that we were cutting on the street. And I stepped on it because I slipped and I almost fell. There was no damage to the carpet, but the damage he created within me, I would never forget. So I learned the trade. I learned the tricks. I learned the business. And little by little, I started building a dream. After years of sacrifice, I saved $5,000. My father believed in me enough to loan me another $3,000. And at the age of 17 years old, with only $8,000 in my pocket and a dream much bigger than my bank account, I asked my father to sign a lease for me because I was under 18 years old. And my father did that. He signed the lease. I got a 15-year lease starting at $400 on Avenue A between Houston and 2nd Street. And after 15 years, I would be paying $500. And that's how I started Carpet Fashions. Wow. I think back and I say, it's incredible how things evolved in my life. That store became my life. That store was my way out of poverty. That store meant everything to me. Later that same year, I got married. And a few years later, my son Fernando Jr. marched into my life. And becoming a father changed everything. Because now I wasn't hungry for myself. I was hungry for my family. Years later, in 1980, I met a young lady, beautiful young lady, by the name of Stella. Stella became my real partner. She had a 9-to-5 job. I had Carpet Fashions and my son. Every other weekend, we had Fernando. But Stella really became the person holding everything together because I was working 7 days a week, 15 to 18 hours a day minimum. Those weren't work days. Those were survival days. Many nights I was so exhausted I slept right on the job site. And Stella never complained. Because when I met Stella, I said to her, you need to respect 3 things about me. Number 1 in my life is my business. Number 2 in my life is me. Because without me, there is no business. And without the business, there is no me. And number 3 will be you. And after you come my children. And many people would say, "Whoa, how cruel. He put his business and his wife before his children." Hey, my children couldn't have what I delivered to them if it weren't for those 3 things. And guess what? You give your children the best that you can because they are your responsibility. You give your children the best life that they could have. You give it to them because it's your responsibility. You brought them into this world. You have to care for them. But guess what? I always told my wife, when our children grow up and get married, they will have children. And if I get sick and I'm on a dying bed, the person that's going to come and change my pamper is you, not my children, you. And it was hard for her initially to understand, but then she understood it perfectly. And guess what? My children have had a great life. At least I think they have, because we gave them our all. You know, Stella never complained about my working hours. Instead, she cooked dinner and bought dinner to me and my crew when we couldn't leave the job for 1 or 2 or 3 days at a time. Think about that. She wasn't bringing dinner to an office. She was bringing dinner to a construction site, to a husband who was trying to build something out of nothing. She understood that when you're building a dream, the whole family sacrifices. And I'm going to explain to you what sacrifices are as we go on. Carpet Fashions taught me lessons because no one else did. The business became my teacher. The business led the way. And I followed with hard work, determination, and dedication. I never gave myself an excuse to fail, although I had many, believe me. But not every lesson was easy. There were clients who cheated me, because in those days, I did business with a handshake. I believed in a man's word. I believe a man's word meant something. Then came Mr. Friedman. Wow, Mr. Friedman came along. And as much as I needed every dollar that I was bringing in to invest back into the business, Mr. Friedman came along and took a huge piece of it. But I want you to know that as I was building Carpet Fashions, and as I was a kid, I had no money, I had no credit, I had nothing. And guess what? One day, I didn't even have a van to transport the material in. I had an old beat-up Chevy that I used to tie the carpet onto the roof. Everyone in the neighborhood would laugh because they'd say, "Look at this kid. He's going to cave the roof of his car with all this carpet that he's tying on top of it." I used to put the padding and my tools in the back seat, and my helper that I used to only bring in when I needed him, I used to sit him in the front seat with me. We could barely see out the front windshield. One day, a guy walks into the store and says, "Hey, I'm from Citibank, and we'd like to do business with you." And in my mind, I'm saying, this guy's crazy. What does he want to do business with me for? I have no money. All I have is a storefront with a bunch of samples. But guess what? He never knew that. He thought I was thriving. And I said to him, if you want my business, get me a loan. I need a $5,000 loan. And he says, come into the bank and fill out an application. And I did. And guess what? I got the loan. How? I don't know. I guess it was the energy, the desire, the wanting and the needing the money in order to buy merchandise to be able to sell. Because the way I used to do it, I used to take a deposit from people that would give me a deposit, because some people would say, no, you're too young, you're a kid, you might not even come and show up to do the job. So I'd say, you know what, pay me after I did the job, but I needed the money to buy to do the job, right? So those $5,000 gave me a little injection, a little boost. And guess what? I'm going to come back with that boost after the commercials. So stay tuned.